You can't do a background, can you?
What's that? We can't what?
Can you set a background on this?
I have no idea. I've never actually, by the way, we're live. I've never done it on that way. I've got a background that is set up. So I try and do things that are real easy and just step it in. But then things fall apart, even though you have it all sorted. Like today, I don't know, where are you based right now?
Brisbane, Australia.
Brisbane, yeah. So I'm in Sydney. And I don't know if it hit you guys up there, but a couple of days ago we got hit by, it was so short, this amazing thunderstorm, and it just crashed out all of our internet literally down our street. So we've got none of our normal internet, and we're sort of I'm doing the MacGyver sort of moment this morning, and I had a call at 5:30 a.m. where I was actually an amazing conversation with a global leader over there. You're wanting everything to go right, and nothing went right. Absolutely nothing. It glitched in and out, and I'm like, wow, this is just crazy world we're living in sometimes. Anyway, and then my headphones decided they didn't want to work, and then you couldn't get on here. So we've had a fun moment with technology, which is quite interesting, considering I think some of the conversation we'll have today. And so welcome to the decision table. This is literally just conversation where we learn more of the insights of just the thinking and maybe just asking questions that haven't been asked before, and we continue to learn from that, both you and I, as we continue this conversation. Because I don't know, one of the things that I'm having right now is conversations every day with amazing people and using different lenses. And this month, the lens on the decision table is around the importance of what I think is the muscle of human intelligence. So for me, human intelligence, putting it real basic, is the data in which us as humans gain from our world, gain from our DNA, gain from whatever it is that comes into us, and then the output of that. And you know, I think we're in a environment across the world right now where we can use that data well, and we can not use that data well. So I'd love to hear what you think when I say things like human intelligence.
When you say the muscle of human intelligence, I sort of think it's a little bit weak at the moment.
I agree with you on that one, and we can talk more about that. So, by the way, there's no judgment zone on this one. We go whatever layers we want to here, because I think that's how we learn, right? Like, what is working, what is not working. What do you see is working right now across the globe?
I think the thing that's working, and it's really been part of a result of the COVID virus, is that there's a more basic understanding of just how much impact fossil fuel and fossil fuel vehicles are having on the globe. And, you know, there's, I think, a better understanding that, you know, fossil fuel, you know, might be causing climate change. You know, there's skeptics out there that say it's not, but it's definitely causing pollution. And that pollution impact is what is impacting humanity. And as a marine biologist, my great concern is what's happening with the oceans. And people don't realize how important the oceans are for our global survival. And in fact, this point in time where humanity is very comfortable on Earth. And without the oceans right, we have nothing left.
Yeah. So let's talk more about the pollutions. What pollutions are you seeing?
Well, just take an example of a fossil fuel vehicle. It steals our oxygen, replaces it with toxic exhaust gases, and then you've got all the side impacts associated with that in cities. You know, that's why they're banning fossil fuel in cities like London and New Delhi and other places like that, because they realise the impact. And it's not just it's probably more hazardous actually than smoking cigarettes.
And so let's go deeper into the impact, because I think part of what this is about is creating awareness around even what the problem is. So it's, you see a problem and you're seeing that there's an impact from that. What is that impact that you're seeing?
From the pollution?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, just health, environment,
Yep.
and all the and the biosphere impact. There's it's and every bit of it's an economic impact as well, because in the fossil fuel industry is really what's the driver of the world economy at the moment, or it's been positioned that way,
Yeah.
and it's still people are thinking in that way, and it's time that there's a new change in the way economies are run. And if we pivot more toward economies that are run on energy and clean energy, we're in a new space. And in fact, if you really wanted to take it away down the track, you'd say, let's convert currency into energy.
And how could we do that? What can that look like?
Well, at the moment, you're paying, if you've got hooked into your power, you're paying 30 cents a kilowatt hour. So the kilowatt becomes the basis of the monetary exchange. It's common everywhere. Everyone can measure a kilowatt. And in fact, that's the way we're moving with our electric vehicles. You'll have our electric vehicles. We're running a trial now, as you know. We scored $5 million off the federal government for. It's a very clever trial, global first, and it's an AC bidirectional mobile energy management system. It's part of the vehicle, and in effect, what it means, I can come to your house, Mary, and plug in the vehicle, do an analysis of your house circuit. So yes, this is safe to take some energy from, and it'll take energy or give energy depending what the grid is demanding at the time. And if you turn the air conditioner on, the vehicle charge rate will drop back, so it's not overheating your wires. And then in fact, it won't overheat your wires anyway, because its draw is about the equivalent of a 2-bar radiator. But
wow!
At the end of my visit and a friendly coffee with you,
Absolutely.
I take the plug out, and my vehicle, through the electronics, settles with your power company. Job's done. It's all done exactly. And if you wanted to compare it with anything at all, it's much like the behaviour of a mobile phone. You don't think about it. You use your mobile phone, you make calls, you book things, you buy things on it. That's what our vehicle will be doing.
Wow. So I love this, because you've seen a problem and you've gone, okay, part of that problem is the fact that we're polluting, and this has got a major impact on oceans and things like that, economy, humanity, you name it, right? Like we've recognized that on this already. I love the fact that you've created a solution that can really, it narrows that gap massively. I don't know that everyone's going to come on board straight away with that, because humanity are these funny creatures where change is not something that, they embrace really quickly. Any thoughts around
that? I'll argue that point with you, because you got a mobile phone?
I do.
Yeah. And this is effectively a mobile phone on wheels with a lot more benefits. And one of the key benefits is you don't have to go hunting around once a week to find a petrol station to fuel it. Your fuel station is at home. And in fact, the other great advantage of it is that it's like a mobile phone. You plug it in and leave it, and it's just a large battery on wheels. And the key advantage, which I think is what will pivot people, is running cost. People are very sensitive on the hip pocket, and the running cost of an electric vehicle is a fifth of what it is equivalent in fossil fuel. And if you're running solar at home, well, different story again. And see, that's where the pivot's happening. And this is where the big opportunity is globally. That many Australians now got solar, and they've got that's their home fuel station, and it's energy direct from the safest nuclear reactor around out there in the sky, and you convert that energy from the sun. The converter can be wind turbine, panels, photovoltaic panels, directly to electricity. Short, simple, clean.
Where did you get interested in all of this? Where did this start from?
Well, I'm a marine biologist, my training, right? And always been involved trying to raise awareness about the oceans. It's been, well, I'm 68 now, so it's been a long career of doing that. And I was a teacher for quite a while, and set up quite a number of different organisations that were focused on the marine environment. And set up a company many years ago called Get Green, and we purposely called it Get Green just to sort of focus the thoughts of our commercial clients, because greenies were considered the enemy of the economy.
Yeah, totally.
What we're demonstrating was that by following our energy management solutions, they were saving money, and we saved many corporations significant money in their operating costs. And from that company, we sort of branched from energy management and energy saving devices to solar farms, and naturally how this is generated. Actually, we're talking to one of the developers of a solar farm, and mentioned their interest in EVs, and he introduced us then to Dr. Charles Kung, and he's got a different background himself. He's a nuclear engineer. He's also chief engineer for the high-speed rail that runs the length of Taiwan, and a key manager in one of the leading autos in Taiwan. And so I'm talking now about the history of where we came from. And then,
fascinating.
And then he's partnered up with Gerhard Kerr. Gerhard Kerr is a modest German. Well, he says he is. He's a German, but he's not really. He's modest. It's unusual for a German to be that modest.
I was thinking, yes, and the Germans I know aren't quite like that. So, yeah.
Anyway, he just calls himself a mechanic, but he worked with Ernst Tomke on the smart car in the early days, in 2000. And that's where some of our, if you look at our vehicles, some of our genetics come out of the smart car. And then he was responsible for developing an FRP division for Benz. Now he's out on his own, and we're pretty sure at the moment, he's one of the global leaders in 100% composite production technology. And Australia is really at a critical and it's a critical point for Australia to start to re-establish itself as a manufacturer.
Agree.
Also take some leadership in the world in the green energy area, because Australia's got abundant reserves of sunlight and land. Energy, and so we see that as pivotal behind what we're doing, and the two great advantages we have with our vehicle. There's a global advantage. 100% composite. So if I explain a composite, basically a plastic vehicle, and what we've got now are agreements with various universities where we're working on green plastics and recycled plastics for manufacturing the vehicle, and we're using a clever smart cell manufacturing technology developed by Charles and Gerhard. That means the vehicle can be produced at 1/3 the energy of the equivalent, and about 50% lighter than other vehicles in its class. So we think we're on it's a great opportunity for Australia, and if we grab it and run with it, we can be a real influencer globally. And we know that's having impact, because we're talking now with countries offshore that want to set up pipeline agreements with us.
Do you find that a lot of the time it's the offshore conversations that are easier than the local conversations?
Well, I can't deny that one, really. It was embarrassing at the start, actually, because when we first started talking with Charles, he said, why would I talk to Australia? And we convinced him, and he came out and he visited. He said, Greg, done my research, great ownership rates in Australia, 3 times where I come from. And he said, the site you've picked out, perfect. But I've been looking at, he met with Treasury, Queensland Treasury, and a few others. And anyway, he said, but Greg, the government doesn't seem to have any appetite. The auto industry just let go. And I can't see anywhere, and this was 2017, early 2018, I can't see anywhere evidence that the government's setting up any real policy for electric vehicles that gives me confidence in investing here. And so we couldn't argue that point, but he'd come out to do his due diligence. And anyway, we persisted, didn't give up. And now we've convinced him, despite all the rhetoric in the media, and been out 3 times to Australia, and he and Gerhardt now, with the progress, particularly securing that $5 million grant off the federal government, he's suddenly realised that maybe there is a pivot happening. And, he said, Greg, I've said that losing the auto industry was a bad thing, but actually for you it's good because you've got no competition. And so, but there's
a lot of truth in that right now.
Yeah, but that's a big error. And we're not auto. As I said before, we're really a mobile phone. It's got seats and wheels, and it's cheap.
No, you're a plastic mobile phone with wheels, with a lot of genetic smartness in there, from the sound of it. I really, really love that. I think this is interesting though, because I think it shows this gap that we have, particularly over here. And, with the borders closed, it makes it quite difficult globally to be having these conversations as well, if other than being online and making sure you're in the right spots or whatever it is. And I think this is either it's going to hold us back as a country, or it's going to help us now get on the same page globally and move us forward in that way. Whether it's, and in this case, in the renewal, I can't even say that word right now.
Renewables.
You can say it. Thank you. Energy side of it, right? Like, we have this opportunity as a nation right now to be, manufacturing this and leading in a way that is just amazing. But I think there's this gap between this is amazing opportunity and reality of Australia taking that on board and seeing that and really, obviously you're making some shifts along there, but I mean, they could escalate that. This could be the next big thing and, start changing the global sort of thinking around, whether we should be dealing with Australia or not.
No, you're correct. And Australia's in a really good position to jumpstart itself after COVID. And make a difference here and globally. For example, already we've got over $2 million worth of reservations of vehicles. And the factory's not even built yet, or it's not ready. But as people have got confidence and can see the value in it. And and in terms of the other things you were saying, it's a huge opportunity, and it's a shame. We've been sort of shovel ready for the last 12 months, and it's just a very slow process. Our investors have had to come from offshore. We can't really secure much interest here. And even with government at the start, it was very difficult. But South Australian government get it. I met with the Premier late last year, and we're pretty optimistic about what can happen down there. We've got some great partners. As you're probably aware, we've had one company join us. It's going to convert our vehicle into fully autonomous. So down the track, you can buy your ACE Australian Clean Energy electric vehicle next year, and in 2 or 3 years' time, say, I'm getting sick of driving it. I'll put a plug-in play autonomous drive kit in it, and so then you might say, I'd like a personality. I'd like a personality for the car. So you put that in, and effectively, when you walk out the garage, it'll recognise you're walking out and say, "Hi, Kerry Marie," and you'll say, you might have a name for the vehicle by then. And you say, "Morning." It'll recognise your walk. It's recognised your voice. As you get closer, it'll recognise your face. It'll open up. That's it. No keys.
Wow. We are in crazy times. I love the fact, though, that you've had smart people come together and go, hey, here's a problem. let's figure out how we can, create a sustainable solution, because this is what it is. And I really love it for that reason, because we're not leaving behind, devastation for the next generation and the generations to come. Actually, it's springboarding to what is possible and opens up so much, opportunities going forward. Both if we bring it as a manufacturing thing here in Australia, because of course, that's going to boost the economy here. It's going to give, positions for people to, have roles within that company and the growing of that. And that's exciting. I love the fact you had smart minds and you use those smart minds to come up with these solutions. I think, and one of the reasons I talk about this and is one of my absolute, I'm writing three white papers, and this is one of the white papers, which is the importance of the muscle of human intelligence, is that I think there's a lot of smart humans that have forgotten how to think for themselves, how to use those smartness, or aren't even at the tables to be able to innovate new solutions. And one of the things that has come out of these conversations is the fact that there are so many awesome humans doing amazing things across the globe. And most of them are feeling extremely isolated right now and not coming together, yet imagine if some of them came together as a collective, the solutions we could really innovate and bring change. Where did it come from for you guys that you go, no, we're going to connect this piece, this person, those, and get this happening in that way?
Well, I think it was the idea, and to be honest, I wouldn't be here talking with you now if Elon Musk hadn't have done what he's done. He's broken barriers left, right, and centre.
He really has, hasn't he? Yeah.
He's ignored the establishment, and so that's opened the door for us. And to be honest, the group we've got some of the cleverest people on the planet working on our mobile energy management system. Out of Silicon Valley, France, and then of course our own people. The other thing I'm discovering is that we're being approached now by some of the leading auto suppliers as well, because all the components will need very high tech stuff, and designers. And some of the world's best designers and some of the world's best are Australians living overseas. And
crazy, right?
And our CTO in Paris, he's smarter than me, and he's been overseas 30 years, and he's just itching to get back here. He just loves what we're doing. And the passion there, Kira Marie, is for the future. Everyone on the sees this as a solution for our grandchildren, because if we don't do something, they're going to be just overwhelmed with increasing weather changes and extremes of weather and events like the bushfires we had.
Yeah.
I've got 10 grandchildren. I don't want to leave them with that.
Yeah. I'm the same. I've got actually 3 grandchildren. So I have started that next generation of the generations as well. So, and it's extremely important to me as well, like that we are creating sustainable solutions at the table, and we are using our brains to bring our smartness to the table as well, and combining that. I think that this is interesting around the whole, if all of you, it fascinates me, to be honest, that such smart people have come together and not seen it as individuals and gone, well, you could be smart on your own, create something, but as a collective, you've joined that together. And I know it's funny that I even keep going on about this, but I'm seeing it a lot where there are so many individuals. And one of the things that I saw when I was traveling the world and doing a lot of my work, literally nomadic, and we took our families with us and our family with us, and we we dedicated 3.5 years until the borders closed us down, and then we sort of had to put a hold on that for the moment. And and part of my work was in amongst a lot of culture and learning from many different aspects, to decisions being made at top decision tables, to what was actually on the front line of humanity and needed, and then seeing how we do that or don't do that, and what we can do to sort of narrow that gap. And one of the things that I really saw, and I began writing about 1.5 years before, this pandemic hit the world, and that was what I called isolation. And I started saying it was like an epidemic that I saw amongst not just leadership, but across humanity. And one of the things that I'm seeing right now with leadership is some are wanting to bring change, some are starting to bring change, some are doing their own thing, but it's all very individual, it's isolated. And that comes from, if we think of Australia and where Australia is, there's this ugly thing called the tall poppy syndrome. And that like, if we are we don't want to be doing and encouraging other people because we just want to be doing our own life and everyone doing it at that moment. And then there's the other side of it where there's people who go, well, this is my thing, this is my IP, and I don't want to be sharing it because what if you take this and go, and then so there's many things that can kind of stop and keep you going as an individual. But to work as a collective and then to come up with something that can literally change, massively across the globe, that's huge. And we want to be able to do that more. I'm not sure that we can. I want to, and I'm definitely on a mission to find out the amazing pill or answers or whatever it is to it. But it's a challenge as a collective to come together and to bring the change as a collective. Any thoughts or insights around that?
Yeah, look, I think you could say at the moment, where's Australia going? What's the picture?
Yeah.
Where will we be in 10 years, 20 years? What will the place look like? And at present, well, I can't see the picture. I'm not sure what it is. So we're busy drawing our own picture. And the picture drawn is that we want a cleaner environment. We want people enjoying life, having more money to spend on other things other than running vehicles, and having a vehicle that's as useful or more useful than a mobile phone. I keep coming back to the mobile phone.
You do.
And a cleaner environment. And the idea with our vehicle is that it lasts a lifetime. It's not meant to be, you buy it now and then a new vehicle comes out and buy it. The way it works is that if, say, in 2 or 3 years' time, you're a bit sick of the look of it, you go into your local dealer and say, I want a skin change. And effectively, you change the skins, give it a different appearance vehicle, a few updates inside, and you drive out a new vehicle effectively. And it's a cradle to grave solution. As I said, we've got universities working on the skins, and we're already looking at hemp nanoparticles in the skin material with a bioresin. So there's no dependence at all on fossil fuel.
So powerful. What an amazing solution. Okay, so let's switch this a little, because your passion is ocean, and that's where it's all come from as well. What are you seeing? Obviously, when before COVID, there was so many planes, there were so many things happening to our oceans across the globe. What are you seeing now with COVID that's been a positive thing? And how do we keep making sure that, obviously we can do it through the cars, but what else are you seeing?
And look, COVID was a good wake-up call for the planet in terms of waste. You and I are now having this conversation. I've had a huge number of meetings globally and got in and talking at a person-to-person level instead of going through the normal boardroom all the other cultures that exist in organisation. You're actually talking to the person, and it's made achieving things much easier. It's actually helped springboard things for us in terms of who we could meet and who we could talk with.
Oh, that's amazing.
12 months, and the fact that there are less aircraft in the sky, that's not an issue. That's good.
Yeah.
In terms of the oceans, they're still suffering because what's happening is they've acted as a huge carbon sink. All the carbon dioxide is being produced, and everyone's carrying on about the carbon dioxide levels to accelerating climate change. Most of it's gone into the sea. The sea's been protecting us from the worst of it, and so and it's slightly lifting the acid levels in the sea, or the pH, and that of course affects life in the sea. The other bad thing that's happening, or the damaging thing that's happening, is overfishing. We're taking far too much out of the ocean, and at the same time as we're overfishing it, we're busy pouring all this pollution into the ocean. From every country's got its own bilge water basically running out into the sea, and we need to clean those things up. We need to give the oceans a chance because they provide 70% of our oxygen, and that happens in the top. It's a nanoplankton, phytoplankton, but it's a nano-sized plankton, and that's the whole ocean surface is like a massive leaf, generating oxygen, and we muck that surface tension on the top of the water up with pollution, whatever else. It affects that everything, and and if you want to bring it into context, if you shrunk the Earth down to the size of a basketball, a cup of water. That's a cup of water that we've got to protect.
Wow. So how do we protect it other than cars? How do we protect it?
Well, we just change the way we discharge all the waste from our cities for a start.
But you make it sound so easy. Yes, we just it's not an easy thing, right? So how do we do it?
But you've got to get the conversation happening, and then once the conversation happens, and people see that pouring all this sewage into the ocean is really a huge waste of resources. When you look at how much a week do you spend at the supermarket? Where does it all go? Through your body out to the sea, and it's as bad as burning fossil fuel. It's inefficient. I mean, there's nothing wrong with fossil fuel going into road materials or into plastics, even plastics, because it's stored there. It's not being burnt and pumped into the atmosphere. And it's a silly use of a resource, and the human waste is a resource for different things, but to pump it out into the oceans, where it goes is toward the bottom of the ocean, and they had a massive problem years ago on the east coast of west coast of US, where they were pumping the sewage, and it was just filling up effectively an underwater valley. And then it overflowed, and finding fish kills, everything was happening because of that. And that was probably a bit of a wake-up call then to start treating the sewage effluent a little bit better. But there's a long way to go with that. And as I said, you're spending, say $200 a week on food, and it's being pumped out into the sea.
And way more than that.
Yeah.
It's even worse. I hate to admit it, but it's the truth. Yeah.
So,
look, here's the thing though, so you're saying let's have more conversations around this. Let's create awareness. This is one of the things that I think is a fundamental, and then what I believe is the need for a new approach to leadership, which is that we're having different conversations like this and creating awareness around it. How do we get more conversations like this? Because yes, now at the moment we can get some more people talking. But then we need to be able to bring that to what I call the decision table and be able to have more of those conversations. Who do we need at that table? How do we get them there to see that this is even something that maybe we could have a conversation around?
You could probably ask David Attenborough that. He must be one of the most frustrated people on the globe. His life has been nature, and he can see what's happening, and he's still got people calling him make believe. I guess they just, he's yeah, he must be very frustrated, but he's got a lot of people following him. He's done a good job in raising awareness, and it's important to get to the decision makers and for them to understand. And unfortunately, that usually rests on, they look at their hip pocket, how many votes they'll get. And so you need to convince the punters that what is in their best interest is to follow a track that's more sustainable and has actually economic benefits. And I see that with the uptake of EVs, that will be a real learning experience, because people suddenly say, well, I'm going green, I'm using energy efficiently and having less impact on the environment. I've got more money in my pocket, and life's much better. It's much nicer driving an EV. You pull up at the traffic lights, silent, stops, and no gears. And if it's a four-wheel drive EV, it's got more power and more traction than a typical fossil fuel vehicle.
No, I love that. Here's the interesting thing, because the third thing that I'm really speaking on is bringing humanity as stakeholders, back to really bringing humanity as stakeholders at the decision table. And so what I love about what we've talked about is from these new approaches to how we can do it, to then going, let's use those smartness to help make sure that humanity and environment, by the way, this is not one or the other, but for me, it's humanity as stakeholders back at the decision table. And in this case, we can add environment in there as well, right? But when we're talking about things like that, we know that living in a place that is not as healthy for us or our environment, that is going to have an effect on who we are and how we, are being effective or not effective. And so for me, it's pretty interesting conversation when you go back to stakeholders, and you were just saying that, get the decision stakeholders really at that table. Well, humanity are the stakeholders. So how do we get it from those that are making decisions actually realizing that humanity need to be the stakeholders?
Well, it's conversation. You've got to have people join the story and understand it. And
well, I like that, join the story. Yeah.
And identify with it. And once you identify with it, it's an easy story to pass on. And we need some good storytellers that we don't need more Trumps. We don't need people like that.
Oh, really? What makes you say that? No, don't go there. We'll need another how many hours?
But we need some people that are, and we're part of nature. And if we don't look after nature and take care of nature, we're doomed. And we've got to be sensible about the way we do things. And if you don't tie it all to money, the people that are involved with our group at the moment, they didn't join the group because they thought, we're going to make a killing out of this. They joined the group because of what we were focused on doing. And down the track, if it works, well, they'll get a bit of money out of it. But I'm just amazed that they've come on board. Some of them get extraordinary amounts of income, and they've come on board and said, pro bono, Greg, till we see how things go.
I love that. So that means that your story needs to be really strong.
Yeah. And a good story.
You've done that well with what you're involved in.
Yeah, I guess so. I must have told some sort of a reasonable story, because we got all
these people. That's what they're coming on board with, right?
And the beauty of it is that they're adding to the story. They're adding great chapters.
I love that, adding to it. Yeah. That's awesome. So what if all of us were to change our story or add to the story? How can we do that in Australia and then across the globe more?
Well, you're a good example of what you're doing. Just talking about it, get more people thinking and talking.
Yeah.
And that's the real trouble, is getting the story out there. Everyone's got their own little story, and it's sort of hidden most of the time. if you and you're one of the people out there helping get the story out, and we just need more like that, you know, and people with a bit of integrity and, you know, focused on something that's better for the future. And I think it's innate that people recognise goodness in people, and, you know, that what they're proposing is good for the globe. And some just get fascinated by the division and all the other things, because people are a funny group. Fear is a good motivator, and fear of the unknown even a better motivator. And then if you can throw in a few wild stories that got no factual basis but sound good, you cause disruption.
Yeah. So what I love about your thinking is that you're thinking more future. I find there's a lot of people that are thinking very now thinking. How do you feel so hopeful about an uncertain pathway?
Well, I don't know that it's that uncertain. I think you know, we've got a pathway we're sure about, and you know, we could get stopped, but I don't think it'll happen. And the idea is too powerful, the solution is too good, and it makes economic sense. It makes a sense for the biosphere. It's all pluses, and, you know, the funding that we're securing was based around the Sustainability Development Goals of the United Nations. We ticked off nearly every one, and so it's yeah. No, and I lost track of the question there. Sorry, Kira.
No, that's actually really, I love that answer, because I think it's like there is no uncertain pathway for you forward, because you're really certain about where you're heading, the story of where it's going, the pathway forward. And I love that. And I think that that's such a pioneer thinking and spirit. And that's where we're going to get the change that we're needing. And I think that it's a kind of a lost art if you don't trust in your smartness, if you don't trust in your vision, if you don't trust in that you can still innovate really sustainable solutions. And so, you know, and I love the fact that you're role modeling that out there, because I think, like you said, if we get those stories of those that are doing this, then we can see that there is hope for a pathway. And a lot of the pathway is actually predictable if you come on these journeys with us. You know what I mean? And we're not hearing enough of the story.
Yeah, no, and there's a lot of people out there that don't have the confidence, and if you've got a and that's the fact of it, and they've got great ideas, and they just haven't persisted. I mean, we worked on this for 5 years, and you know, if it doesn't succeed, well, I just buy a sleeping bag and go and find. I've got a Memorial Park bench for my wife, and that'll be my home. But we're pretty confident things will go well.
I love that. But I think that that's why you can be and do what you do, is that, hey, the bigger driver is actually outside of your world, of you. And you know, even if it all fails, I can do this, and I'll pick myself back up and I'll do whatever it takes. But you know that this is part of a sustainable solution that is actually you're seeing it come together. You're seeing it, you know, moving along from problem to solution, and you're giving it all it goes. What helps you to stay confident?
Oh, just the people around me. You know, yeah, they got some great ideas, and it's a strange. I can't. It's a bit hard to describe. It's a strange way the organisation works. And the other time I saw it was with the Tasmanian Wilderness Society, and you know, I took some action many years ago over when they were trying to dam the Franklin, and people just came together. You know, they sort of almost as if they knew exactly what had to happen to make this work, to reach an end point. And it's the same with the group we've got now. They, there's no sort of demarcation saying, oh, you're the tool maker or whatever else. Everyone's just sort of knows what they're doing, contributes, and if something goes wrong, no blame. They say, well, let's see how we can fix it.
Oh, I love that. That's really powerful what you just said then. You know, we're almost finishing, but I want to, I had this conversation with this amazing woman yesterday, and she's the head of connections. Well, she's the director of the parks for connections, human connections and environmental connections. It's quite an amazing role, and she's in Dayton, Ohio. And one of the concepts and the amazing things that make this particular role that she's in and the model work is that it's quite unique. They look at 90% of keeping it the conservation side of it, and only 10% of development. And I thought that was a really interesting concept. And they changed what the look of what Dayton is, from being the worst place to being the most, beneficial and advantageous with just as a community, and then bringing other people into a community. Like they shifted it from such a, one extreme to the other. What would be the balance for you? If you think of that as conservation, us looking after Australia, us looking after across the globe, what percentage would that be of development versus keeping it in its natural resources and things like that? I thought that was an amazing model, and it's really made me quite curious now.
Yeah. Now look, the electric vehicle is really going to have a significant impact. It's taking 24% of the pollution out of the environment for a start. Once
that's so good.
The uptake occurs, and as I said, I think it'll be a change in the way people think, and nature has got to take precedent, because we're part of it, and if we neglect it or damage it, we're basically cutting off our own hands, our own feet.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so if anyone wants to connect with you and learn more about what you do, where's the best spot for them to do that?
Our best thing is just to go to our website. There's a subscription link there, and start the communication that way.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I do this is the only question that I ask on every single decision table. Everything else is whatever comes with the conversation. But one of the things that we have established is that awareness, for me, there's some fundamentals to leadership. I think it's less about telling these days and more about what are the lenses we're using within leadership. And so I've got a few lenses that I think are really important. So one is awareness, and then I think there's ownership, change, and then sustainability. And I think, well, okay, cool. Now we've created awareness through our conversation today, you and I having a conversation on here. But my question to you is, what are you taking away from this conversation today? What are you owning on this?
Today, just knowing that you're out there putting the message out, and I guess just having the opportunity to share what I think we need to do, and what we are doing, and I think just you push and get the word out as much as possible, because you can have a significant influence on what's happening.
Yeah, I love that. What am I taking from this conversation? I think that there's, I've loved what you talked about, the renewable energy, and I'm going to have to learn to say that word because for some reason I'm struggling. I'm dyslexic, so, that's my disclaimer to often difficulties either in spelling or saying some words.
That's a poor excuse. You're doing very well.
Thank you. I've worked very hard to be able to say things well, and to actually make sense, because a lot of the time my brain was so intense that it was really hard for others to understand. So I've had to do a lot of work on that side of it. But one of the things that I'm taking away from this is really just understanding again, and I think it's that combination of how environment, humanity, and then the solution that we're bringing, how we can really take on board all of those things. I think it's less about individual looking at a particular thing and then going, hey, we should be just creating the sustainable solution that only fits one piece of this. I think there's so many more pieces. And what I've loved about this is you've created more awareness for me personally around, some of these things that we don't hear being talked about much. I love just giving you the space to tell me how you think about things, because a lot of the time it may be just your normal life, but it's not always the normal life that everyone else is experiencing. And so for today, for me, I'm totally grateful for being able to be exposed to this conversation and create more awareness around that, and then see how that can help to, you said use your influence to bring the change. And that's what we're I'm really looking at, is how can we use all of these stories to maybe come together more as a collective to be able to actually bring so much more change. And it sounds so easy in theory, and it's great in my brain, and it's not so easy across the globe to be doing this, but it's not impossible either. And that's what I love about today's conversation.
No, look, I've enjoyed it, and it's good to have the interest. The questions you asked haven't been asked before, a lot of those questions, so it was interesting.
I hear that every time. But here's the thing: what if you were leaving people with something? What would you leave them with today? Or are there some insight or some thinking or a story even that you'd love to leave with?
I think the simplest thing is what's best for our grandchildren. Focus on that.
Oh, that was a winner in itself. By the way, how many grandchildren did you say you had?
10.
10. Ages from?
From 12 down.
12 down. Wow. And so they are starting to really develop some of their thinking and what they want to get involved. So I have a question on this one, because one of the things that's come out of using the lens of the importance of the muscle of human intelligence, one of the things that has come out of, and I'm finding this quite fascinating, is the fact that it's, yes, we now know that we want to use that muscle. We want to bring some of these intelligences to the table to be able to innovate these new, beautiful, sustainable solutions. And that starts back in the younger generation.
True.
If there was something that we could help teach and develop around a program for younger generation, to not have to wait till maybe your age, my age, and we slowly, putting together these things now, then what would you suggest, or have you got any thoughts around how we could develop something that maybe could be helping our younger generation to be able to do this better too?
Look, I think really it depends on their parents and the examples that you give in life. And in effect, the kids nowadays, they're really, they've got an opportunity, and they're showing it, a great deal of intelligence and cleverness. They're given a hard time. There's some kids that have terrible lives because of the conditions they've been brought up in, but there's great opportunity there. My grandchildren, I can see already kids, and they'll be influential as engineers and lawyers.
Amazing.
all sorts of things like that.
But how do we nurture that? Because I don't know that the system really helps us to nurture that, right?
Well, I was doing it when I was teaching marine. I developed courses, and I did my bit there, and impassioned quite a few people, I think. But it's just, it's got to be a focus more on the biology side of things, and community, and not just focused on the. And it is changing. The concept is changing, I'm sure. But I don't know if I can give you much advice there now, but I think it's.
I like hearing whatever you've got to say.
It comes back to example, and doing the right thing, and that sort of is part of the makeup of your children and your grandchildren. That they'll think of others and be considerate, and minimum footprint on the earth in terms of what they do. Not wasteful and not greedy.
Wow. I love that. Thank you. That's so amazing. And thank you for sharing your insights and your droplets of wisdom. I love hearing it. I love hearing from your perspective. And, I know that I've taken some things from this, and I'm sure our listeners have as well. So I'm going to end the broadcast. Don't you run away quite yet, though. I'd love to have a moment to.
No, thank
but thank you.